Was the universe born from absolute nothing? That question floats like stardust in the silence before time. It is a whisper older than memory, a mystery that predates the very notion of questions. In the great stillness before space had form, and before time took its first breath, there was, perhaps, nothing. Not the empty void of a quiet room, not the hush between words or the pause between thoughts, but something far more profound. Absolute nothingness. No dimensions, no particles, no vacuum to stretch or collapse, not even the language to describe it. And yet, here we are. Galaxies blaze, stars are born, minds arise and wonder. Out of this supposed nothing came everything. But how? To speak of a universe born from nothing is to speak in contradictions, to wrap language around what has no edge, no color, no origin. The notion slithers between logic and madness, between what we can calculate and what we can only feel. Scientists attempt to measure the first fraction of a second, to peel back the layers of expansion and energy. But beyond that veil, we find no clarity, only questions that grow heavier with each step into the dark. If the universe came from absolute nothingness, then how did the rules of reality come to be? Who or what set the constants, if there was nothing to set them? Why does gravity behave with such elegance? Why does time move forward and not backward, if there was no initial moment to define direction? In the eyes of the quantum, the void is never truly empty. Particles flicker into being and vanish again, like thoughts we can't quite hold. The quantum vacuum, a seething, restless possibility, seems to hint that even nothing might be something. But that, too, is not the nothing we seek. That is a stage, already built. That is not the canvas, but the brushstroke. Philosophers have long asked, was the universe truly born from absolute nothing? Or was there always something? Some eternal field, some primordial law, some hidden code humming behind the veil of being? To stand beneath a star-swept sky is to confront this riddle. We tilt our heads back and bathe in the light of ancient suns, photons that have traveled for billions of years to whisper in our eyes. And with that light comes a question. Why is there something rather than nothing? This isn't mere poetry. It is the wound at the heart of reality. Every galaxy, every atom, every moment is an echo of that unfathomable origin. Did existence erupt from a perfect void? Or is that void itself a mirage? Imagine a universe with no before, no ticking clock, no empty space, no observer to ask the question. Just an abyss so pure it defies description. And then, somehow, a spark. A point of infinite density, infinite heat, unfolding in an instant. The Big Bang. Not an explosion in space, but an explosion of space. Yet to speak of bang is to use a word rooted in sound, in sequence. What preceded the bang? What laid the fuse? To explore whether the universe was born from absolute nothing is to challenge the very bedrock of existence. Some suggest that the laws of physics themselves allowed the universe to emerge spontaneously, that the total energy of the cosmos might be zero, positive energy balanced by the negative gravity, making creation a sort of cosmic accounting trick, a flash of something from a debtless void. But even this elegant arithmetic rests on a foundation of laws, and laws require lawgivers, or at least a realm in which they can be expressed. Was that realm something? Or was it still nothing? The further we drift from the familiar, the more language becomes an inadequate raft. We cling to metaphors, a vacuum a seed, a birth. But absolute nothingness defies metaphor. It is not dark, it is not even black. It is not quiet, it is not even silent. It has no qualities, no absence, no presence. It is an idea our minds rebel against. Because we are born into a world of things, of causes and effects, of light and shadow. The human brain was never meant to grasp pure negation. And yet, we try. Across temples and laboratories, through prayer and particle collisions, we keep asking. Because the alternative is unbearable. To accept without understanding. And maybe we will never understand. Maybe the answer lies forever beyond our reach, hidden in a moment we can never touch, in a silence too deep for instruments and too perfect for words. Still, we are drawn to that edge. Not out of arrogance, but longing. The kind of longing that burns at the center of every story, every equation, every glance into the abyss. Was the universe born from absolute nothing? We return to the question again and again, like a forgotten name on the tip of the cosmic tongue. And maybe, just maybe, the answer isn't out there among the stars. Maybe it's in the asking, in the act of wondering, in the aching poetry of a species that dares to speak into the void and listen for an echo. To understand this, we must go back. Before the language of mathematics carved the laws of nature into elegant equations, before telescopes pierced the heavens and radio waves mapped the echoes of creation, there were stories, not scientific accounts, but poetic flames flickering in the caves of early consciousness. Every civilization, from the high mountains of the Andes to the winding rivers of the Nile, gazed skyward and asked the same trembling question. How did the universe begin? What lies behind the curtain of existence? In ancient Sumer, creation was a dance of gods and primordial waters, swirling into the firmament and the earth. In Egypt, the god Atum emerged from the chaotic waters of Nun, speaking the world into being. The Rigveda, echoing from the Indus Valley, posed a riddle still unsolved. Who truly knows, and who can here declare it? Whence it was born, and whence came this creation? These were not just metaphors, they were cosmic frameworks, ways to hold infinity in the palm of myth. Even in these earliest attempts, one haunting concept rippled beneath the surface: creation ex nihilo. The notion that the universe arose not from some divine substance or existing chaos, but from absolute void. It wasn't a scientific hypothesis. It was a tremor of intuition, an echo of wonder, that something, somehow, erupted from nothing. It is a whisper that returns again and again across faiths and philosophies. Whether it was a god speaking light into existence or a sacred sound stirring stillness, the essence remained. There was nothing. And then there was everything. But what does nothing truly mean in physics and cosmology? The ancients treated it as absence, an emptiness waiting to be filled. But modern science complicates the picture. Nothing, to a quantum physicist, is not a blank slate, but a boiling froth of potential, where particles flicker into existence without warning, like ghosts crossing the veil. And yet, this vacuum is still something. The ancient question sharpens. If nothing contains potential, is it still truly nothing? Or have we only redefined the silence? Before the Big Bang, thinkers of all disciplines struggled with this boundary. What came before time? What lies beyond the cosmic horizon? Plato imagined a demiurge, a divine craftsman, organizing chaos into form. Aristotle rejected the idea of a beginning altogether, insisting the universe was eternal. In contrast, earlier Jewish and Christian thinkers insisted on a beginning, a moment of divine fiat. Let there be light. In this, the theological and philosophical foundations of creation ex nihilo took root, declaring that the universe was willed into being from nothing, not reshaped from existing material. For centuries, this view stood apart from science. But with the 20th century came a revelation. The universe is expanding. And if it's expanding, it must have once been smaller, unimaginably so. A single point, a moment. Thus was born the idea of the Big Bang, not as an explosion in space, but the sudden appearance of space, of time, of matter, of law. A cosmic genesis wrapped in heat and light. Suddenly, the old question became urgent once again. What existed before the Big Bang? Was there even a before? Some physicists argue the question itself is meaningless. Time began with the Big Bang, they say. There was no before. Others suggest our universe emerged from a prior state, perhaps a collapsing cosmos that rebounded in a great cycle. Others still entertain the possibility of a multiverse, where our beginning was just one ripple in a boundless sea. But behind each of these hypotheses lurks the same haunting mystery. Why is there something rather than nothing? Creation ex nihilo is no longer just a theological idea. It is a challenge posed to physics, to metaphysics, to language itself. If the Big Bang was the moment the universe began, then what initiated it? If there was no cause, no material, and no time, how did it happen? Is it enough to say that the laws of quantum mechanics allow for spontaneous creation? And if so, where did those laws come from? Perhaps our ancestors were not so different from us. They lit fires under stars and told stories to fill the silence. We light equations and build particle colliders. But we still seek the same origin. We still ask, how did the universe begin? And what does that beginning tell us about ourselves? The history of this question is the history of human thought itself. It winds through Babylonian tablets, Buddhist sutras, Islamic treatises on time and space, through Galileo's telescope, Newton's equations, Einstein's curved space-time, and Hawking's collapsing singularity. With each step, we peel back a layer of mystery, only to find deeper enigmas beneath. And so we stand here now, heirs to thousands of years of wondering. We have equations that describe the first trillionth of a second. We have models of inflation, of symmetry breaking, of cosmic strings vibrating in the silence of nothingness. But we do not have the answer. Not yet. We have fragments of a cosmic story written in light and probability, but the first page remains missing. In that absence, we find awe. We find humility. We find the beginning, not just of a universe, but of the need to ask why it exists at all. In the stillness of space, light travels without sound, but not without memory. Every photon is a messenger from the past, a witness. And to read that memory, to peer into the hush of cosmic infancy, humanity has built instruments of extraordinary ambition. This is where the mission begins. Not the first mission to space, or to the moon, or even to Mars, but a mission far more ancient in intent, to understand where it all began, to find, if we can, the ghostly imprint of creation itself. Beneath the fields of Geneva, in a ring of steel and silence 17 miles wide, the Large Hadron Collider awakens with a hum not unlike thunder in a bottle. It is here that particles, the tiniest known grains of existence, are hurled at each other near the speed of light. In that moment of collision, they recreate the furnace of the early universe, just billionths of a second after the Big Bang. every spark, every trace. Left behind is a clue, a whisper from a time when the universe was young and lawless, when the quantum vacuum simmered with possibility. The quantum vacuum, it sounds like emptiness, a perfect silence. But in truth, it is a seething cauldron of unpredictability. It is not the absence of matter, but a field of raw potential, a restless stage where particles blink into existence, exist for a breath, and vanish again. The vacuum, it seems, is never truly still. It is a paradox, a chaos garden beneath the polished floors of classical physics. And yet, from this chaos, order blooms. It is in the realm of these quantum fluctuations that our origin may be found. For in those tiny, random jitterings of energy, those tremors in the fabric of space itself, lie the seeds of stars, of galaxies, of everything. To explore this invisible drama, we turned our eyes outward. The James Webb Space Telescope was not built to look at planets or moons. It was built to gaze beyond the veil of gas and time, back to a moment only a few 100 million years after the birth of everything. Suspended in cold, perfect darkness a million miles from Earth, Webb collects the dimmest echoes of the first light. It is not just a space telescope. It is a time machine, a sentinel of time, watching the cosmos as it once was, tracing the fingerprints of those early quantum fluctuations that gave birth to structure itself. Each ripple in the early universe, frozen in the fossil glow of the cosmic microwave background, is a fossil of a fluctuation. What began as random, meaningless energy became the scaffolding upon which galaxies would grow. Matter, attracted to denser regions, began to coalesce. Over time, the universe transformed from a hot fog of light and plasma into a cathedral of stars and voids. But it began with those imperceptible nudges, those quantum whispers. But the James Webb Telescope is not alone. Hubble laid the path, revealing that the universe is not static, not eternal in its current form, but expanding, stretching outward like the breath of a god. Planck mapped the afterglow of the Big Bang with exquisite precision. And the next generation of instruments waits in the wings, more powerful, more precise, more attuned to the quietest murmurs of the universe's birth. In these missions, orbital sentinels and underground accelerators, we seek not just knowledge, but revelation. Particle colliders probe the smallest scales. They are not just smashing particles. They are peeling back the layers of reality. They test the standard model, challenge its limits, search for the invisible threads of dark matter, for the elusive graviton, for the meaning of mass itself. Every discovery adds a new brushstroke to the painting. Every null result is a narrowing of mystery's maze. And so, humanity's quest continues, a mission not of conquest, but of comprehension. Through the lens of a space telescope and the hum of a particle collider, we are writing a story written in energy and time. We are following the thread back to the first ripple, to the first decision of the cosmos to become rather than remain still. Is the quantum vacuum our origin? Are quantum fluctuations the authors of our fate? Or are they simply the stagehands preparing a scene for an act they never wrote? The questions linger in the data, in the starlight, in the controlled chaos of a collider's core. The universe is not answering easily. It is testing us, drawing us deeper, closer, into the mystery it has always kept folded in its light. We look and we listen, and we build machines not just to measure, but to dream. This is the mission, and it has only just begun. In the early days of our exploration, before the models matured and the data sets grew vast, We expected simplicity. We thought the void would be quiet, a blank slate onto which the universe painted its stars. But what we found in those first mysterious signals was something far stranger. It wasn't matter. It wasn't light. It wasn't motion, not in the way we understood it. It was potential, something raw and fundamental, flickering at the base of existence like embers beneath ash. Vacuum energy, the energy of empty space, emerged not as a theoretical curiosity, but as the silent heartbeat of the cosmos itself. This discovery did not come with fanfare. It was born in the tension between what we saw and what our equations expected. Observations of distant galaxies revealed a cosmic expansion not slowing down, but accelerating, as if the fabric of reality itself was being pushed outward by an invisible hand. Dark energy, they called it. A placeholder, a name for our ignorance. And deep within it, they began to suspect, lay the signature of vacuum energy. Space itself was not inert. It had pressure. It had drive. It had a will to expand. Not from within, but as an intrinsic property of existence. The void was not void. It pulsed. What could this mean? It changed everything. If vacuum energy was real, if it had the power to shape the entire cosmos, then perhaps it wasn't just a background hum. Perhaps it was the first thing. The beginning not of things, but of becoming. A field of restlessness from which all else emerged. The first flicker in the darkness. The breath of spontaneous creation. For decades, we had imagined a hot, dense state, a singularity, an explosion of infinite density and infinite heat. But this was different. This was a whisper instead of a roar, a shift in a field, a spontaneous change in the rules, not because something acted, but because nothing did. Because even in the absence of matter, energy stirred. And from that energy, from that pregnant stillness, the origin of the universe may have unfolded. In the silence before the bang, if we can even call it silence, there was no time, no shape, no sequence. And yet, within vacuum energy, there was possibility. The universe did not need a spark from outside. It needed only instability, a quantum fluctuation that became irreversible, a moment when the balance of nothing became too fragile to hold. And so it broke, or it changed. And in that change, space inflated faster than light, unfurling a newborn cosmos like a flag in solar wind. This idea, that the universe could arise from spontaneous creation, was radical, even to those who believed in the Big Bang, because it suggested that the origin of the universe was not the beginning of something that always had the potential to be, but the arrival of potential itself, a world where cause and effect dissolve, where laws do not precede existence, but emerge with it, where even logic, our most sacred tool, is a child of the same process it tries to describe. Some called this dangerous, others liberating. But all agreed, it changed the rules. If spontaneous creation is real, then perhaps there was no trigger, no external God hand, no ancient cosmic bell ringing time into being. Perhaps creation was a quantum inevitability, not because it had to happen, but because it couldn't not happen. And yet, even as this revelation spread through the halls of physics and philosophy, it brought new questions. If vacuum energy is the origin of the universe, why this universe? Why these laws, these constants, this improbable balance? Why the conditions for life, for thought, for questions themselves? Was there only one fluctuation, one breath, one act of spontaneous creation? Or are there many, infinite, bubbling in the deeper fabric of a multiverse we cannot yet see. The first discovery was not a final answer. It was the tearing open of a deeper riddle. We found not certainty, but invitation. Anomalies that whispered not of error, but of deeper structure. Measurements of cosmic background radiation, with its tiny imperfections, matched not randomness, but the fingerprints of a beginning written in vacuum energy. Those fluctuations, magnified by inflation, became the seeds of galaxies, the scaffolding of everything. To some, this is cold comfort. A universe born not of intention, but of probability. No design, no destiny, just a rising wave from a formless sea. But to others, this is beauty in its purest form. A story that writes itself. A becoming that needed no author. And in that spontaneity, that uncaused origin, we find the ultimate humility. We are not the center of the story. We are its consequence. Still, the first discovery haunts us, because it feels too simple, too elegant. The math suggests it could be true, and yet the soul recoils. Spontaneous creation from vacuum energy, it sounds like a trick. But the universe plays no tricks. It simply is, and maybe that is enough. Maybe the origin of the universe is not a riddle to be solved, but a wonder to be held. Maybe what we call discovery is only the slow unfolding of what has always been true. That even in nothing, there is the breath of becoming, that the first flicker still echoes in the silence between stars. The deeper we dig into the fabric of reality, the more it seems to fray. With every answer, a dozen new questions unfold, silent explosions in the mind that reveal just how little we truly know. What began as wonder becomes paradox. What felt like discovery now trembles with contradiction. We stare into the equations, into the afterglow of the Big Bang, into the breathless silence of the quantum vacuum, and we ask again, more urgently than before, did the universe really come from absolute nothing? The theories, once so bold and confident, now feel less like declarations and more like riddles whispered through cosmic static. Could something come from nothing, as some physicists suggest? Can a universe spring into existence spontaneously, uncaused, unprovoked, driven only by the probabilistic dance of quantum mechanics? Or are we mistaking the limits of our models, the fog at the edge of our understanding, for some grand metaphysical truth? What is nothing in physics? Is it truly nothing, or simply the smallest something we can currently describe? We talk of singularities, points of infinite density, infinite heat, where the laws of physics collapse under their own weight. The birth of time and space compressed into a region smaller than imagination allows. But what is a singularity if not another name for mystery, a placeholder for what we cannot explain? It stands like a black monolith at the boundary of comprehension, something beyond which our mathematics shatter like glass. One interpretation suggests the universe began in such a singularity, an infinitesimal core from which all energy, matter, and law emerged. But how does a singularity exist within nothing? And why did it erupt when it did? Perhaps our terms have misled us. Nothing is not a single idea. It is many, layered, elusive. The absence of matter? The absence of energy? The absence of space and time? Or something deeper? The absence of potential itself? These are not semantic games. They are the heart of the puzzle, because if we cannot define nothing, how can we claim the universe came from it? The quantum world offers one answer, that the vacuum is never empty, that particles can spring into being without cause, that in the seething foam beneath reality, something always threatens to become. But is this nothing? Or is it the most minimal something, a substrate of law and possibility, already structured and ruled? And if such a substrate exists, where did it come from? This is the unraveling mystery, the moment where theory loses confidence. Some cosmologists propose that the laws of physics themselves are emergent, born with the universe, not before it. That time, causality, and logic are not eternal, but recent. Yet even this raises deeper questions. If the laws are born with the universe, how could they permit its creation? Doesn't that imply a meta-law, a deeper framework within which creation from nothing was allowed? Others posit multiverses, an infinite sea of bubbles, each universe a ripple in a larger, eternal inflation. But even this inflationary field, this generating process, requires something. A field, a fluctuation, a mechanism. Where is the nothing in this cascade of somethingness? The more we learn, the more it seems we are circling a mystery too vast to grasp. Every model of the origin begins not with nothing, but with something subtle, hidden, half-acknowledged, a set of initial conditions, a rule book, a spark. We keep tracing the fire back, hoping to find an empty hearth. But always, there is one more ember. And then there is the human part of the equation. The fact that we ask these questions at all, that a species born from stardust dares to inquire about its ultimate beginning, that consciousness itself, a byproduct of cosmic chemistry, now turns back to the cosmos and demands meaning. Perhaps this too is part of the unraveling mystery. Perhaps we are not just looking at the universe. We are the universe looking at itself. So, can something come from nothing in cosmology? Maybe. Or maybe that question is built on faulty ground. Maybe we have misunderstood what nothing means. Maybe we have not yet invented the language needed to describe what came before language. Or maybe there was never truly a before. Still, we search. Still, we question. Because mystery, in the end, is not a flaw. It is the source of all meaning. The unraveling is not failure. It is grace. It is the invitation to keep dreaming, to stand on the edge of all we know and listen to the silence, and ask once more, did the universe really come from absolute nothing? Or did it come from something we have yet to understand? Across the cosmic canvas, from the birth of stars to the breath of thought, there is a strange and subtle thread, a connection so vast and intimate that it defies ordinary language. This is not the tale of distant galaxies alone. It is our story. It is the story of why anything exists, and more wondrously, why something within that existence became aware. Cosmology is not simply the study of distant light or mathematical models. It is the art of tracing the echoes of the beginning through everything, even through us. If the universe began not with form, but with a break, a fracture in absolute stillness, then all that followed was the resolution of that rupture. From spontaneous creation, a dance began. Energy spread, time bloomed. The vacuum pulsed into fabric. In the earliest fractions of a second, the very laws of physics may have crystallized out of nothingness, like frost forming on a still pane of glass. Symmetry broke. The uniform gave way to difference. And with it came gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces. These were not pre-written ancient scrolls. They were forged in the moment. The laws of physics' origin is, perhaps, the most delicate act of creation the cosmos ever performed. And they are the laws that everything, from the spin of a cork to the orbit of planets, has obeyed ever since. But these laws are not sterile. They do not dictate a machine. They allow for unfolding, for emergence. Galaxies form not as rigid structures, but as graceful consequences of imbalance. Gravity coaxing chaos into beauty. Stars are born, burn, and die, releasing elements into space, seeding future generations of stars and eventually planets. It is a balance, but not a static one. The universe is not fixed. It flows, it ages, it evolves. And in this evolution, the seeds of life were carried. Entropy, the measure of disorder, moves ever forward. The universe spreads, cools, dissipates. Yet in localized eddies, order appears, planets form, chemistry awakens, molecules dance toward complexity. On one quiet world, a fragile membrane enclosed a speck of awareness. That speck multiplied, learned, remembered, forgot. Eventually, it looked up, and it wondered. If the laws of physics emerged from an unstable nothingness, then perhaps even consciousness is an echo of chaos resolving into order. We are not accidents. We are not afterthoughts. We are patterns, intricate, evolving expressions of the universe trying to understand itself. The evolution of consciousness is not separate from cosmology. It is its culmination. The cosmos does not merely expand in size, it expands in knowing, in reflection, in meaning. Consider this. Every atom in your body was once forged in the heart of a dying star. Every heartbeat is regulated by forces born in the same moment that ignited time. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your lungs, all trace their lineage to stellar alchemy. And that process, that lineage, is guided by laws older than any language, yet young in the scope of infinity. There is a universe balance, a precarious harmony that has permitted galaxies to form, stars to live, and life to arise. Shift the strength of gravity by the smallest amount, and stars would never ignite. Alter the charge of the electron, and chemistry would fall apart. This fine-tuning is not just elegant, it is astonishing. It suggests that the fabric of our universe is stitched with intention, or at least with conditions amenable to unfolding complexity. And yet, we must be careful. Fine-tuning does not demand purpose. It may simply be one path among infinite possibilities, the only one in which observers like us could emerge to ask the question at all. Still, the question remains, why this path? Why this balance? Perhaps we are the natural result of entropy fighting itself, of order rising temporarily from decay. Perhaps consciousness is the universe's way of pausing, of reflecting before continuing its slow slide into silence. Or perhaps, as some suggest, consciousness is not a side effect but a fundamental feature, as baked into the fabric of being as space and time themselves. From the smallest fluctuation in the early universe to the birth of stars, the evolution of life, and the rise of sentient minds, the thread remains unbroken. We are not outside the universe, studying it as spectators. We are inside it. We are made of it. We are its continuation, its question, its dream. The cosmic connection is not a metaphor. It is a truth that pulses through everything. That the light from ancient galaxies is the same light that dances in our neurons. That the forces that governed the first second of existence still govern. our heartbeat, that the silence of the void contains the music of becoming. And so we ask, are we alone in this awareness? Is consciousness a rare bloom, or a common flower in the garden of the cosmos? We do not yet know, but we know this: the universe has given us the tools to wonder, to explore, to feel awe. And in that awe, perhaps, we are fulfilling the purpose of those first laws. Perhaps the origin was not just an event, but a promise, that complexity could arise, that order could sing, that one day in some quiet corner of time, a small voice could look into the void and say, I am part of this. The deeper we peer into the mechanics of existence, the more the ground beneath our understanding begins to quake. What began as a journey to uncover the origin of our universe, to trace its birth from nothingness, now turns in a direction no one expected. Like turning a corner in a familiar city, only to find a landscape you've never seen before, we arrive at a question far stranger than we dared imagine. What if our universe is not the only one? What if this grand cosmos, with its galaxies and laws and delicate balance, is just one bubble floating in an endless sea? This is the unexpected twist, the doorway into multiverse theory. Some theorists whisper, perhaps our universe is but one bubble in an eternal multiverse, a vast ensemble of universes, each with its own physics, its own beginning, its own reality. In this view, the Big Bang was not a singular event, but merely our beginning, one spark in an infinite fire. Our cosmos could be a fluctuation in a larger quantum field, one bubble among countless others endlessly forming, expanding, vanishing. If that's true, it reframes the question, not just why this universe, but whether any universe is special at all. Multiverse theory didn't begin as science fiction. It emerged naturally, quietly, from equations too elegant to ignore. The idea grew out of eternal inflation, a model that explains the rapid expansion of the early universe. In that model, the inflation never truly ends. It slows in some regions, giving birth to pockets of space-time, universes, while continuing elsewhere. Like an eternal cosmic foam, reality bubbles endlessly. Some of these bubbles may resemble our universe. Others may obey entirely different laws, where stars never form, or gravity repels instead of attracts, or even where time itself flows backward. Are there alternative theories to the universe from nothing? Indeed. And they multiply the more we ask. Some suggest a cyclic universe, endlessly collapsing and rebirthing in a rhythm beyond time. Others speak of a pre-Big Bang geometry, where time and space warped through higher dimensions. Some even suggest our universe is a hologram, a projection of information encoded on a cosmic boundary. Each theory bends our comprehension, pushes us further from the comfortable notion of a singular, isolated beginning. And what then of the Big Bang? Is the Big Bang the beginning of everything? It might not be. It may only be the beginning of our observable universe, a moment when conditions aligned to create what we now see. But it might not be the beginning, not the first, not the root, just the part of the story we're capable of witnessing from inside the bubble. If this is true, if the multiverse exists, then the fine-tuned perfection we marvel at may no longer be so miraculous. In a sea of infinite variation, some universe was bound to be just right, and we, inevitably, would find ourselves in that one. It's not destiny, it's selection. We are here because we can be. That truth is humbling, even unsettling. it renders. The cosmic balance we admire not as a sign of meaning, but as an inevitability of vast numbers. But this twist doesn't silence the mystery. It deepens it. Because even if there are infinite universes, where did that structure come from? What gave rise to the multiverse? What forged the laws that allow laws to exist at all? We are pulled into recursion, questions within questions. The more universes we imagine, the more our longing for a true origin intensifies. And yet, for all its vastness, the multiverse may be forever beyond our reach. We cannot step outside our own bubble. We cannot observe what lies beyond our causal horizon. The evidence is indirect, inferential, like reading ripples on the surface of a pond and guessing what stirred beneath. Perhaps one day, we will find the fingerprints of another universe imprinted faintly on our own. Or perhaps not. The twist may remain hidden, a ghost at the edge of understanding. Still, its presence changes everything. It forces us to abandon the idea that our universe is the universe. It requires us to imagine a reality far larger, far stranger, and far more impersonal than we ever conceived. It is the turning point, the moment the narrative widens beyond comprehension. We are no longer asking how something came from nothing. We are asking how everything could exist at once. And in this new question, a quiet truth emerges. The cosmos is not a riddle with a clean answer. It is a story, layered, recursive, ever-expanding. Perhaps the twist was always there, waiting for us, not to explain everything, but to remind us how much more there is left to ask. The stars have always been mirrors. When ancient peoples looked up at the sky, they weren't just mapping constellations, they were mapping themselves. Patterns in the heavens became symbols, and symbols became stories. Now, thousands of years later, we stand with instruments, far more powerful than myth, colliders, space telescopes, quantum equations, and yet the impulse remains the same. We are still searching the cosmos to understand who we are. And in the wake of all we've discovered, in the face of vacuum, energy, quantum fields, and spontaneous creation, a deeper question arises. What does this all mean for us? Quantum cosmology now frames the origin of the universe not as an event sparked by divine will or an uncaused miracle, but as a natural outcome of the laws of quantum mechanics, a probabilistic inevitability born from fluctuations in a timeless, law-bound nothingness. It's a staggering claim. That reality might require no external cause. That space-time itself could have emerged through the same quantum principles that govern particles inside an atom. But if that's true, if the universe can arise from nothing through natural law, then what are the implications for humanity? Not just scientifically, but existentially? The conversation has shifted from particles to purpose, from creation and causality to our place in the story. Because a universe that needs no maker also implies a universe that offers no assigned meaning, no cosmic destiny, no written in the stars fate. And yet, strangely, this does not make life meaningless. It makes it ours. If no purpose was given, then purpose is something we must create, not just individually, but collectively. As a species awakening to its improbable, magnificent existence in a sea of silence. Physicists now ask, if quantum cosmology explains our beginning, what does that mean for what comes next? Are we just a flicker in a cosmic fluctuation, destined to vanish as entropy takes its toll? Or is there something about consciousness, about reflection, that resists disappearance? Some argue that understanding the origin is key to understanding the trajectory. that by decoding what happened before the Big Bang according to science, or what preconditions might have made it possible, we gain insight not just into the past, but into what futures are allowed by the rules of reality. The past was once the domain of prophets and storytellers. Now, it is the domain of minds like Stephen Hawking, Alexander Vilenkin, and Lawrence Krauss, scientists proposing that a universe from nothing isn't just a poetic suggestion, but a mathematically sound hypothesis. Krauss, in particular, famously argues that the laws of physics do not merely describe the universe. They can explain its existence without appeal to anything beyond themselves. That nothing, if defined correctly, is unstable. And from that instability, everything can arise. It's a radical vision, one that collapses the need for a beginning caused by something outside the system. But it also collapses the boundary between scientific exploration and philosophical wonder. Because once we accept that the universe might be a natural outcome, the next question becomes, why this outcome? Why a universe where galaxies form, where stars persist, where chemistry leads to life, and life leads to thought? Some call it luck, others inevitability. But many now consider the anthropic principle, the idea that we observe a universe like this because only a universe like this could contain observers. That may sound circular, but it reframes the debate. It reminds us that we are not neutral spectators. We are participatory components of the cosmos. Our consciousness is not an afterthought. It is part of the pattern. So what now? What do we do with this knowledge, with the growing consensus that our origin may lie not in purpose, but in possibility? Do we feel despair, knowing we were not placed here with a mission? Or do we feel awe, recognizing that against all odds we are here, thinking, dreaming, questioning? There is a strange kind of dignity in this new vision, a liberation. No longer bound by myths of control, we are free to make our own meaning, to choose wonder, even in the absence of certainty, to build futures not because we must, but because we can. The implications ripple through everything: ethics, responsibility, civilization. If this planet is the only one where consciousness has bloomed, then what obligation do we have to protect it? If this moment, this narrow window in time, when stars still shine and minds still ask questions, is a brief gift from a blind universe, then what do we owe each other? Science does not offer easy answers. It never promised to. But it offers clarity. And with clarity comes responsibility. We know now that we are fragile, temporary, improbable. But we also know that we are capable of extraordinary things. We've bent electricity to will, lifted our species into orbit, decoded the genome, and unraveled the early moments of time itself. We are the only known part of the universe that reflects on its own becoming. So perhaps, in the end, the most profound implication of the universe arising from nothing is not that we are meaningless, but that we are the meaning, that in a cosmos where nothingness can blossom into galaxies, the greatest miracle is not that it happened once, but that something within it now wonders why. Maybe the truth is simple, yet impossible, that the birth of the universe was a silent note played by no one, from nowhere, not a flash, not a voice, but a ripple through the stillness of what never was. And in that ripple, space swelled, time began, light imagined itself. We call it the Big Bang, the cosmic dawn, the moment when reality blinked open its eyes. But those are only names, shadows we throw at something so delicate, so unreachable, that even our grandest theories tremble at its edge. The universe from nothing. It sounds absurd, and maybe it is. Maybe that absurdity is a kind of honesty. The raw confession that we do not know why there is something rather than nothing, only that there is, and that we are part of it. The stars were never required to shine. Gravity did not need to be gentle enough for galaxies to form. Chemistry did not owe us life. And yet, here we are, breathing starlight, thinking atoms, telling stories to keep the silence at bay. There are philosophical arguments about universe perfection, that the cosmos seems too balanced, too fine-tuned, too elegant to be accidental, that if the fundamental constants had shifted by the smallest breath, nothing would be here. No planets, no oceans, no questions. It's as if reality were tuned not just for life, but for wonder, for contemplation, for the quiet moment when a mind somewhere looks at the night sky and feels a question burning behind the stars. And what of that perfection? Is it a sign or a coincidence? Is the universe a product of deeper law or of infinite chance? If the multiverse exists, perhaps our cosmos is just the lucky one, not perfect, only survivable. But if this is the only universe, if this is all there ever was and will be, then perhaps the perfection we see is real. And perhaps it means something, not because someone intended it, but because we are here to notice. In the stillness between what we know and what we feel, we return to the impossible, the universe from nothing. We imagine the void, not as darkness, not as absence, but as the before, the place where no clock ticked, no space stretched, no mind asked. And from that, the universe unfolded like a breath held too long. First, the laws, then the light, then the stars, then us. We speak of entropy, of heat-death, of the long silence that will come when the last star dies and the universe grows cold. And yet, that too is part of the story. A reminder that nothingness is not just behind us. It waits ahead. That we are a brief flare between two silences. That meaning is not written in the stars, but forged in the moments we choose to see them. Perhaps we are the universe's way of remembering itself, of noticing the miracle that it exists at all. Perhaps every thought, every act of love, every question asked in the dark is a way for the cosmos to echo its own birth, not with sound, but with awareness. There will always be things we do not know. The origin will remain partly hidden, like the first word in a forgotten song. But maybe that's how it should be. Maybe certainty would cheapen the mystery. Maybe the universe is not a puzzle to be solved, but a poem to be read. Line by line, lifetime by lifetime, always unfinished. So we return to the beginning, not to answer, but to wonder. Not to close the story, but to open it again. The birth of the universe may be beyond comprehension, but not beyond beauty. We may never know why it happened, but we know that it did. And we are here, in it, of it, with it. In the end, maybe that's enough. Maybe the greatest truth is not hidden in equations or buried in ancient light. Maybe it lives in the awe that rises unbidden when we look at the stars and feel, for just a moment, the vastness within ourselves. The universe from nothing, not as a riddle, but as a gift. Not as a conclusion, but as an invitation to ask, to feel. to be.